Hey, River. Hope you're doing well today. Hey, I wanted to take a chance and cut this video to try out a new concept. I'm sure everybody realizes that the lengths of the sermons have been getting longer and longer and longer, almost since we started the 2 Year Bible Initiative, maybe even a little before that. So, for the sake of trying to keep things a little tighter and also trying to improve and get better, we wanted to do this second bite at the apple video and pull some of the things that are great and interesting and fantastic out of the main thrust of the message, and then come back with this video and just share some of that stuff in a little bit maybe more nerd kind of fashion with you. This gives me a chance for my inner Bible nerd to share with you some of that, and it gives you the chance to not have to sit and listen to me talk for 50 minutes in a sitting. Uh, Here goes. We were at the end of Judges this last week. Our text picked up, let's see here, our text picked up in Judges 11, actually, and I backed us up to 10 and a half to talk about Jephthah before then we got into Samson. And I said there were some really good things that were happening in Judges that I don't know, we're pretty comfortable Torah readers now, so I'm confident that you were picking up on some of the themes, but I wanted to just draw some or tie a bow in some of those and draw some conclusions that maybe you didn't. And so a part of it, as we're going through Judges, and this story is just, the story goes like from bad to worse to worse to what in the world is this even? And it can leave us just like really stuck in that narrative and missing some of the other stuff in this. We've been calling it the sin redemption cycle. And it's just like, it seems like the person that God uses as a judge almost always has just like glaring character defects. And so it can leave a person asking the question, is God cool with that? Does God condone this evil in people and this clear brokenness? And the answer is an obvious no. We've talked about time and place, right? Like God is working in our hearts, in our lives, in a time and place. And within the biblical narrative, it's happening within a time and place. And within that time and place, it's the people that are there. And so it shows God using people despite their brokenness in an attempt to accomplish his mission. And so as we're reading these narratives, and man, we're going to still continue on in Samuel and Kings and Chronicles. Like it's not going to get a lot better. And it can leave us with this, just pit in our, this pit in our stomach. And I want to draw us to this larger narrative. God has been displaying, since giving us this word, and even in the narrative that it came to us out of, that he desires to work through humans as his missional partners to fulfill his goal, even though they're broken. And so it's not a disqualifier. It doesn't mean that he condones it and he's like, yes, don't even worry about that. But it also doesn't mean that he scraps the whole thing. It shows us a God that wants to partner with humanity and that wants to use humans in his missional objective. And so one of the things that we didn't talk about in Judges that's kind of a fun nerd fact is the major and the minor judges that are mentioned. And I put the map up on Sunday so you could see kind of the geographical areas of the larger judges, or maybe it had all of the judges. I'm not remembering right now, but what you'll see is that there are narratives that are coming to us from different tribes because we're not in a unified kingdom yet. And so we're heading towards a unified kingdom, but we're not there yet. And so there's tribal allotments. And what most scholars would believe is there's no way of telling, but it almost is certain that Judges is not written chronologically through history. And it's very likely that multiple judges are happening within the same time period. And so it may not be from the way that we read it chronologically, but these could be happening simultaneously, which could give us a little bit more of an insight into the nature of the nation at the time. And so some of the things that are super fun to talk about and super fun to dig in to the literary structure. I'm not familiar with any chiasm per se, apart from Ehud's story. So Ehud is the first judge, and his story absolutely falls chiastically. I'll tell you that and then leave you to find what's in the middle of that chiasm. But there is a literary structure that is uncanny within the book of Judges. And so some of it, I'm just going to walk us kind of, is the parallels between Ehud, the first judge, and Samson, the last judge. And they serve as kind of like social and geographical symmetry, right? So we have Ehud, who comes to us from the tribe of Benjamin, which is in this middle belt on the east side of on the east side of the nation. And then we have Samson, the last judge, who comes from the tribe of Dan on the west side. Again, there's this middle belt that happens, and they're both loners. I mean, in comparison to the other judges, they're isolated within their stories. They're kind of like folk heroes that come to us out of this midsection. This midsection, Dan Benjamin, is going to play an important part in the book of Judges, specifically as it begins to conclude, and it picks up in 17 through 21, and you just get like this wild piece and this eerie refrain that keeps popping up in 17 through 21. It happens 4 times. In those days, Israel had no king. Every man did as he saw fit. This ominous tone, but this plays a part. This Dan Benjamin belt within the middle, and 17 through 21 is going to be a Levite coming from the south to the north, and then, 17 to 18, and then 19 to 21. So it's don't miss that this central section plays an important part about this Levite who is, each of those stories are about a Levite who is manipulated in some way, which sparks a regional conflict between communities. And both of those in that belt area, Dan and Benjamin, essentially end up losing their tribal allotment. Dan winds up outside of the promised land in Laish, and Benjamin winds up with only 600 people left and no possible way to fill the entire tribal allotment. So Ehud and Samson plays a symmetry. Then we move into the next judge, and we have Deborah and Jephthah start to play a symmetry in that both of them are social outcasts. There's a social symmetry between Deborah and Jephthah, and Deborah as a woman in a patriarchal society, and then Jephthah as an illegitimate son in a society that didn't have place for that. And so there's social symmetry. Then it comes to Gideon and Avimelech, and they're like doppelgangers, right? Like they literally are like mirroring the paths that Israel might take. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, right? Where Gideon's path is right and Avimelech's path is wrong. And what we see that's so interesting is they're like exact mirror opposites. Gideon is called by the Lord and frees the people from Baal worship. Then his son, Avimelech, it comes and essentially undoes almost exactly backwards everything that Gideon had done in his life. And so they're almost like mirror opposites of each other as we go down that. And so it's with this idea of like reflecting on the symmetry and the patterns that it starts to draw us into maybe more of a picture of what the literary structure of Judges is doing. And it's when we come to Samson that there's something that Wayne Brower put me onto that I think is just uncanny. And that's that there is no greater reflection of Israel's national identity than there is in Samson. right? Like and now there's going to be some themes that Jesus is going to really mirror within this as well, which Matthew picks up on that theme in Matthew 2, I think it's 14, 15, or 12 through 15, when he starts talking about out of Egypt, I've called my son. And so he picks up on the same theme, but just sticking in the Old Testament for now, about this reflection of the nation of Israel and its national identity in Samson. Both are miraculously born. Both are dedicated to Yahweh from birth. Both are unusually strong. Both are supernaturally sustained by these miraculous water flows. Both are constantly lured by the enticements of the surrounding nations. Both call out to Yahweh in distress. Both are willing to compromise their commitments and defile their religious purity. Both continue, in spite of themselves, to be agents of divine deliverance, even with their failures. And both experience subjection to the cruel dictates of others. And so what it shows, or what it would highlight, is Samson would serve as an illustrated sermon, essentially, that would mirror Israel back to itself of this is you, this is, and so you could see in one judge the national identity of the nation. And so served as a graphical, pictorial narrative that would be as a mirror back on the people. And so then we come to 17 through 21, which now we're out of the judges, and we're just kind of in these two weird prologue stories that it just goes from bad to worse. And I want to, not that like giving myself props, but I did teach on the Levite and his concubine a few years ago when we did the Florida Man series. That sermon was on September 18th of 2022. You can find that in YouTube. I dove into some of that deeply then. I didn't have as much knowledge and understanding of the whole of it, but as I looked back through my notes, there was some integrity within the text. But there is something that's happening in there that we want to pay attention to. And again, I drew our attention to it back when I was talking about that belt, and that is this central region, and how it's essentially, it's showing the devolvement of the tribal system, and these tribes essentially losing their inheritance. And so the part that's so interesting for me as we look at the Levite and his concubine is this narrative of how the nation continues to devolve, just almost from bad to worse to worse to worse to worse. And so much so that I made this point too, that a few weeks ago, that they've forgotten their own story. They've forgotten the narrative. And what we see in 19 through 21 is we see the tribe of Benjamin doing exactly what the town of Sodom or Sodom was convicted of. So the atrocities that God delivered the Israelites from in Sodom and Gomorrah, we see the nation forgets their story. And so where they were the victims, now they become the perpetrators in almost the exact same fashion. And so you can't miss those hyperlinks that are happening here. This is drawing us back to that Sodom and Gomorrah narrative. And this piece of this is how far off they've gotten, how far that they have missed they've forgotten the story and missed what their mandate is. And so it's in that I want to just start to draw our attention to the piece that I had mentioned about Sa'ak, and a God who hears the cry, and a God who always comes. And so what we've been experiencing in the narrative up to this point is that God hears the cry of the Israelites. He certainly hears them crying out through the book of Judges. and he responds in their repentance. What we're starting to see is they become the anti-heroes and they become the perpetrators, is we're going to start to see God responding to the sa'ak, to the cry of the people that the nation is oppressing. And we're not going to want to miss that. And so it's in that I wanted to come back, because there is so much. I mean, if you just kind of take this and now start to skim through this, you're going to start seeing links to the resurrection. You're going to start seeing links to the prophets. You're going to start seeing links all over the place of what Judges is doing. And I still will come back to, in light of all of this, the conclusion that I made this last Sunday about misusing our influence and not understanding how God could possibly have a vision that's bigger than we can comprehend in our own strength, if we'll but submit ourselves to Him, look for the ways that we can limit the things that pull us away from that, and with open hands, that God may, just may, be able to use us for influence in the world in a way that we can't comprehend. So it's with that, man. If you get anything out of it, I'm glad. If you didn't, it's been a few minutes that I wish I could give back to you. But hey, I am so grateful to you all. You're a gracious congregation, and I love you, and I love serving you, and I love serving God by loving and serving you. And I'm so excited for all of the Bible nerddom that we're going to do together. So grace and peace.